Hey everybody, welcome to Combat Saturday for September 12th, 2020. I'm your host, DM Gallibond. Alright, today on Combat Saturday we are going to be looking at the Longsword. Longsword is something that has been around literally forever in D&D and probably will be around as a weapon in D&D as long as there is a D&D. For that matter, as long as there's any kind of fantasy, medieval fantasy RPGs like Pathfinder, D&D, anything like that ilk. All right, so let's go ahead and get on with the show. All right, Longsword in 5th edition is a martial melee weapon. 3 pounds, costs 15 gold, deals 1d8 slashing damage, and it is versatile, which means the normal damage is for one-handed use, but versatile means you can add both hands to use it, and when you do so, the damage increases from 1d8 to 1d10. So it gives you the flexibility of having a little bit better damage output if you use it with two hands. But of course, if you use it with one hand, then you can also increase your AC by having a shield on the other arm. Very straightforward that way. And like I said, this has been around forever, and it's changed very little throughout the history of the game. The most interesting version of it is probably back in original D&D, where there really was no such thing as a longsword. There was a short sword, there were bastard swords, and there were two-handed swords, but there was not a longsword. It was just a normal sword. Their idea of a sword, oh, well, it's just a normal sword. And then somebody gave them the idea, no, you got to have if you have a short sword, you got to have a long sword. And so they came up with that. That cost is 10 gold. It weighed 6 pounds, so it was quite a bit heavier in that edition of the game. And it still dealt 1d8 damage. Now, in first edition, or AD&D, a longsword and scabbard costs 15 gold, which is what it costs in the current edition of the game. And the longsword weighed 6 pounds, did 1d8 when wielded by a small or medium creature, and did 1d12 damage when wielded by a large creature. So you get an idea here that it does indeed depend on the strength and size of the creature using the weapon, how much damage it will do. In second edition, we had the longsword, 15 gold, weighed 4 pounds. It was a slashing weapon, cost 5 gold, and it again did 1d8 when wielded by a small or medium creature, and 1d12 when wielded by a large creature. You get to third edition. The longsword is again 15 gold. Now this time, damage wielded by a small version of the longsword. So a longsword wielded by, like, let's say a gnome or a halfling would deal only 1d6, and when used by a medium creature would be 1d8. 4 pounds in weight, slashing weapon, and the crit range is 19 or 20. So you can crit with a weapon when you roll a 19 on your attack instead of just a 20. And the crit multiplier is ×2 for the damage. And then in 4th edition, it was there as well as a military melee one-handed weapon. Gives a proficiency bonus of +3 to your attacks. Damage is 1d8. Price is 15 gold. 4 pounds in weight, considered a heavy blade, and it is a high crit weapon, which means that it has a range greater than just a flat 20 for the crit. So that's sort of the history of the longsword in just a few minutes throughout D&D. It's kind of an essential weapon. You think of it would be very unusual to think of a party in D&D where nobody had a sword, because swords are so ubiquitous, and they seem to be used by just about almost every class except for like your druids and your clerics have the ability to use some kind of a sword, and it seems like that would be like you see it a lot in the game. And certainly, if you play D&D for any amount of time, you're going to run up into enemies that are wielding swords, whether your party has any sword wielders or not. All right, that's going to do it for our discussion of the longsword. I am DM Gallibond. If you like everything that we're doing here on this channel, please go ahead and subscribe, like the videos, share the videos, and click the post notification button so that we can notify you every time a new video drops on the channel. Appreciate it. Thank you guys for watching, and good night, everyone.